All right. Thanks everyone for joining today. I'm Pooja, and I'm the Community Energy Resilience Policy Manager here at the Climate Center. And I'll be moderating today's webinar on collaborating across sectors to accelerate electric school bus adoption for reliable energy. I'm really pleased to be introducing our wonderful speakers for today. First, we'll have Carolina Chacon from the Alliance for Electric School Buses. Next, we'll have Alex Macaria from the Mobility House. Then we'll have Ernie Epley from the Fremont Unified School District. And finally, we'll have Joe Sullivan from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 11. Next slide, please. So first, I want to start by thanking our wonderful sponsors for this, for supporting this work, especially Cliff Family Foundation, which has been helping us put together this webinar series. Next slide, please. I also want to thank our promotional partners who have been helping us promote these webinars. So thanks so much. Next slide, please. So I want to start by giving a little bit of context on the Climate Center and the work we do. So since 2001, the Climate Center has been a leader in making climate solutions a reality in California at speed and at scale. We're a think tank, do tank, working to turn bold ideas into action for a climate-safe future. And today we work in collaboration with businesses, local governments, labor unions, and environmental justice leaders to deliver the equitable climate solutions that science demands. Next slide, please. And we all know that the science is dire. We are on the verge of irreversible tipping points around the world, from burning rainforests to melting sea ice and rising sea levels, and so much more. Next slide, please. And without climate action on the federal stage, it's up to the states to lead. And California is uniquely positioned to do that as the fourth largest economy in the world. Next slide, please. So that brings us to the Climate Center's solution to this crisis, which is the Climate Safe California campaign. And the Climate Safe California campaign calls on the state of California to focus on 4 key areas to make California the first state in the nation to become carbon negative. Next slide, please. So there's 4 pillars of the Climate Safe California campaign, which you see on the screen here. And the pillar that I want to focus on today is building resilient, affordable energy for all, which is the mission of our Community Energy Resilience Program. So as part of this program, as climate extremes intensify, it's time for California to begin building the grid for the future. And this means clean, local, affordable, and reliable energy, which can help avoid blackouts, reduce climate pollution, and protect our communities. Next slide, please. And all of our work is guided by the guiding principles that you see on the screen, which are to follow the latest science, secure a just transition for fossil fuel workers, and to prioritize equitable access to climate solutions. We believe that clean energy, good jobs, and healthy communities should not just be for the wealthy. Next slide, please. And you can check out more about our impact on our website, but I wanted to speak to 2 victories that are related to today's topic on electric school buses. First, last year we sponsored and helped pass SB 59 from Senator Nancy Skinner, which is a first of its kind law to help support bidirectional electric vehicles in California. We want to get to a world where every electric vehicle can be used for energy resilience. And then this year, we sponsored and are waiting the governor's signature on AB 740 by Assemblymember Harabedian, which will help accelerate the adoption of virtual power plants in California. And a virtual power plant is essentially an aggregation of distributed energy resources like electric school buses that can provide electricity back to the grid when it's most needed. Bidirectional electric vehicles, such as bidirectional electric school buses, will be one of the largest assets in our grid for the future that we envision. Next slide, please. So that brings us to our call to action for the day. You can take action to help us secure a climate-safe future by asking Governor Newsom to sign AB 740 by visiting our website at theclimatecenter.org and clicking on Take Action at the top right, or using the link in the chat, or using the QR code on the screen. Next slide, please. So that brings us to today's topic, which is bidirectional electric school buses. At the Climate Center, we're working towards vision that every school bus in California is electric and bidirectional, serving the dual purpose of safely transporting students and ensuring that reliable, affordable, and resilient power reaches every neighborhood. Next slide, please. And finally, I just want to give a little bit of recap on our webinar series so far, since this is the third of a three-part series. So first, we've learned over this series that there are many benefits to bidirectional electric school buses. First, they provide environmental benefits like reduced emissions from reduced reliance on peaker plants and polluting fossil fuels. There's also health benefits like improved air quality for students who are riding buses to and from school every day, and their neighborhoods. And then economic benefits. Communities can meet their energy needs by harnessing these batteries on wheels instead of building large-scale infrastructure. Another thing we've learned is that as per WRI's electric school bus tracker, we know that there's close to 1,500 electric school buses on the road in California, out of a total school bus fleet of about 24,000. California is a leader in state electric vehicle deployment and electric school bus deployment, thanks to funding programs like the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, or HVIP, and the Zero Emission School Bus Infrastructure Project, called ZESB in California, and the Clean School Bus Program from the EPA. We also have learned that electric school buses represent a key opportunity for building community energy resilience, and they can actually bring financial benefits to school districts. Electric school buses have predictable routes, so they charge during the day when electricity is cheap, which is also known as managed charging. And then if enabled for bidirectional charging, they can actually export electricity to the grid when the supply is constrained. And finally, as we've learned about in a prior webinar, there are pilot projects in progress to use bidirectional electric school buses to power resilience hubs during extreme weather and power outages. And then for more information on the context of bidirectional electric school buses, you can check out the link in the chat, which is a really good overview of some of the kind of recent developments in the field. So that concludes my opening remarks. I'm going to pass it along to our first speaker for the day, which is Carolina Chacon.
Thank you so much, Pooja, and thank you to the Climate Center for inviting me to be here today. I'm excited to be with so many electric school bus supporters and advocates in the room, and here to share just a little bit more about the perspective of our coalition. So, as Pooja mentioned, my name is Carolina Chacon, and I am the coalition manager for the Alliance for Electric School Buses. We are a coalition, a national coalition of not-for-profit groups that all share the same goal, the same commitment to an equitable electrification of the nation's school bus fleet, starting in the communities that are breathing the dirtiest air, and creating good U.S. jobs along the way. Our coalition has over 24 members that work at the state, local, and federal levels across actually about 36 different states where we have some presence. And for some additional context, our coalition has been doing this work since 2017, when we first were created and started talking about electric school buses. It was around the context of the Volkswagen settlement. Since then, we started working on federal policy in 2019 when we partnered with the office of then Senator Kamala Harris to introduce the Clean School Bus Act, which would become the basis for the bipartisan infrastructure law's Clean School Bus program. And since then, we've been really heavily focused on federal funding, federal resources, and a lot of the work that we do as a coalition has been focused on that federal advocacy. We engaged with EPA regularly on program design of the Clean School Bus program, also implementation, tried to make sure that applicant outreach was successful while also educating different stakeholders at the state and congressional levels on the program and how they could ensure that communities across the country were applying. Increasingly, we are turning our focus to state and utility advocacy so that we can support advocates, providing the resources that they might need, especially as the federal landscape changes now. We are really hoping to be able to think a lot more clearly about what we can do at the state level, at the utility level, especially. And so a lot of the work that we do is to connect advocates with one another, to connect them to peers, to experts, to share best practices. And in partnership with WRI, we published a policy playbook last year that includes ideas for how state legislators and utilities can advance electric school bus policy. Increasingly, we're also turning to communications and implementation to make sure that we're sharing success stories and also supporting successful implementation and deployments of electric school buses because we know that that will enable us to continue supporting more electric school buses in the future. I'm going to quickly run through some of the key federal programs at the national level, but again, I know many of you are already familiar with these, and what I really want to highlight is how successful they have been and how critical they have been to getting us to the place where we are today. Obviously, the most well-known program is the EPA Clean School Bus Program that was launched in 2022. It has provided 3 rounds of grants and rebates to date for zero-emission electric school buses, as well as low-emission propane or CNG. We've also been able to see that through this program to date, already of the $5 billion that was initially allocated, we already have $2.7 billion of that out the door. That has helped thousands of school districts, has put over 8,500 electric school bus or clean school buses on the road, the vast majority of which are electric school buses. And obviously, many of those have come to California. So this program has been really successful and has been a great model at creating momentum for other states to follow suit. Additionally, you can see here at a more localized level just how many Clean Ride for Kids are coming to communities across the country. Many of these buses are already on the road and continue to deploy. And so we're very excited about this progress because it's helping more communities experience a Clean Ride for Kids and understand that this is something they may want to explore as well. Of course, would be remiss if I didn't mention that we've had a ton of demand for this program and not enough supply. And so, of course, we are very excited at seeing any opportunities that we can to provide more electric school bus funding, given the intense demand, the overwhelming demand that we've seen for the program. So we are continuing to fight for additional funding to be released. There is about $900 million in applications that EPA has from the last round of rebates that closed in January of this year that we are hoping will be announced shortly. EPA has not closed the program. Funding is still flowing after some initial an initial freeze of funds. Funds have since been released for prior rounds, and now we're awaiting the remaining $2 billion to be awarded. We do expect that will happen. EPA essentially has until the end of the 2026 fiscal year, September 30th of next year, to award those remaining funds, and we are expecting them to do so. Additionally, we also have the EPA Clean Heavy Duty Vehicles program, which has provided substantial funding as well. This was created as part of the Inflation Reduction Act. It was a $1 billion program. It funded not just school buses, but it certainly funded almost $500 million in school buses in electric school buses through grants. It focused only on electric and it prioritized areas with poor air quality. And so it's been a really meaningful program for many state agencies who could apply to bring more electric school buses at a state level. We've also had the tax credits that were available to school districts through elective payment, which was a new mechanism created by the Inflation Reduction Act. Unfortunately, of course, we have seen that the deadlines for these tax credits have been accelerated, and these provided up to $40,000 per electric school bus, as well as up to $100,000 per charger. There were some restrictions, and both of these are now ending much earlier than originally expected. 45W for school buses is ending at the end of this month. For vehicles that are acquired through a written contract and a nominal payment or a vehicle trade-in, vehicles that are purchased by September 30th can still qualify. Vehicles after that will not be able to. For 30C, that deadline is June 30th of next year. And so we are doing as much as we can to educate school districts to make sure that they're aware of this upcoming deadline. And if they've put a purchase order in, they can start claiming this tax credit or planning to claim the tax credit by the appropriate deadlines. To give a summary of where things are at federally, because I know this is, in many cases, the biggest topic of discussion, the Clean School Bus Program, which is the biggest program for electric school buses, has $2 billion remaining that are not quite frozen. They just haven't been released at this time. We do expect that hopefully they will be released in the coming months. We've heard some positive rumblings from EPA about a new funding round, but of course, hard to predict what will happen with the Clean Heavy Duty Vehicle program. That is right now in implementation. Uh, Most of those funds have gone out the door. Whatever was left was rescinded, but it wasn't very much. And so we know that communities across the country are already successfully deploying those funds and will continue to do so. We don't expect any changes to that at this time. And the tax credits, again, are expiring soon. But from all of this, I think something that Climate Central asked us to provide were some key challenges or key lessons learned from this federal funding programs. What have we really understood? What are some maybe some key takeaways that we can apply to state funding programs? And so I wanted to share just a few of the lessons we've learned. Again, there's probably going to be much more, but just a few top line things. For one, the decision makers at this level, um, they're not investors, they're not companies, they're not familiar with the technology. And so when we're talking about educating school districts on electric school buses, we've really come to understand that in most cases, they don't have any prior experience with this. Superintendents and transportation directors who are making the decisions really do need a lot of education on the basics of how the technology works, on the funding programs themselves, on the different opportunities, on the cost benefit analysis. And unfortunately, there are many layers of decision makers at the school level, or fortunately in some cases, but you also have school board members who are also not experts on the technology and who are, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, are accountable to voters who also usually don't understand the technology. And so there is a need, and that is something that our coalition is increasingly working on with many partners to really provide that education on electric school buses, not only to help people understand the benefits, but also to counter misinformation that is really prevalent among EVs. School districts also need robust training, and they really do need a lot of support and technical assistance, and even applying for some of these funds to understand how this could benefit them or why they should spend, honestly, any of their time and effort doing this because they have so many other pressing needs. And so we've really learned that a lot of the basics is just education, repetition, and providing a lot of direct support for school districts and other bus operators that are undertaking this transition. This is only amplified when you're talking about a technology like vehicle to grid, because they know even less about that. We also know that the Clean School Bus program really was a game changer, and it has catalyzed two-thirds of the investments out there, but in many cases, it's not enough. Some of the challenges that have really been highlighted by the Clean School Bus program include that electric school bus prices still are high. We have not reached cost parity with diesel buses, and for school districts, affordability is the number one barrier. And so, as these federal programs either fade out or end or become less certain, this is a challenge for school districts. We see, of course, states and utilities stepping up, but we still haven't reached that pricing that we need. At the same time, manufacturers still haven't reached scale for electric school buses, which is also important to reach economies of scale to ensure that we are getting closer and closer to that TCO parity, that total cost of ownership parity. Workforce development, again, there is a tremendous need for school transportation staff to receive training. And in many cases, even before they're deploying, even when they're applying, to really be able to understand this. So we do encourage folks to do ride and drives. We encourage utilities to provide fleet advisory services. But there's a lot of training and education that you need to ensure that those deployments are successful. We've also seen that charging, of course, has been in some cases an obstacle. Fleet advisory services are really critical here to ensure that school districts and bus operators are selecting the right chargers, that they're right sizing their projects, that they have reasonable expectations for the timelines, for their infrastructure setup. And oftentimes you need a leader to help with all the troubleshooting that is needed, and someone who can align all the vendors and hold folks accountable as necessary. Implementation support has also been really critical to success. We've really seen that folks need, in some cases, I call it handholding, not in a derogatory way, simply that you do need a lot of education and walking folks through a lot of granular details once they're implementing. And that is not always support that advocates can provide, but that many other technical organizations can. Additionally, we've really seen backlash in some cases. You do need community support. And again, bringing up school boards. They are very critical. They can change hands every couple of years, and that can mean a sea change in the priorities of the school district. And so it's important to have robust community support to rely on, which is the next piece. Local community voices are really critical to this transition. You need parents and students and community members and community leaders who are willing to push lawmakers, who are willing to push for strong policies to be passed, not just on funding, but also on workforce development, on procurement, on climate planning for schools. You need to also be able to demonstrate that the community wants this, that this is something they're interested in, that they have a vested interest in it and commitment to, because it is more beneficial for their children, but also because this is the kind of community that they want to live in. They can also, in many cases, help ensure that historically underserved communities benefit, which is a key part of an equitable transition, is where these buses go. They can't just go to the school districts with the best air quality to make the most difference. We really need them to go in the communities that are most suffering from pollution, which we know data tells us tend to be low-income communities and communities of color. And then in the cases where school districts want to back out of their awards or of their commitments, it's really important that these communities are available to help keep them accountable to those commitments that they've made, to goals that they've set. If not, backsliding again is possible and in some cases very likely. We've seen this already throughout the country. We have also really learned that peer-to-peer learning is best. And so as much as advocates play an important role in this, it's even more important to find school district leaders and champions who are willing to educate their peers. Understandably, school district leaders trust each other and trust their peers much more than in some cases environmental groups. Some have been burned by vendors who've claimed or promised the world and haven't been able to deliver. And it's also more important for school districts to really be empowered to demand accountability when it's needed as a group. And so we really do encourage school districts to talk to one another, and we encourage any government agencies or other coalitions to support cohorts of peer-to-peer learning because we've seen that be incredibly successful. And lastly, I would like to share that for school districts, what's really mission critical is delivering kids to and from school. And so as we've learned, generating backup power, delivering power to the grid, even emissions, they're all secondary to that number one task of making sure that kids are arriving in school safely and on time. And so you really need that to be successful for all of those other benefits to be a priority for the school district. And so when it comes to V2G, the buses really have to work at their core function before any V2G project is going to be considered successful. And with that, I'll turn it over back to Pooja. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Carolina. That was a super helpful overview. And we're really excited to ask you some questions later on. But next, we'll be moving on to Alex from the Mobility House.
Awesome. Thank you, Pooja. Hi, everyone. Really delighted to be here. And my name is Alex Macharia, Vehicle Grid Integration Program Manager at the Mobility House. I'm in charge of the implementation of commercial vehicle-to-grid projects in North America. My background is in automotive, having spent over a decade in commercial vehicle OEM engineering, and here more recently, the last few years, in vehicle electrification and also charge management. A little bit about the Mobility House. We have been in operation since 2009, so 15 years, and today control over 160,000 chargers globally. This is across 2,500 sites. So you can say we've got quite a lot of skill and awareness on CMS, charge management services, and electrification as a whole. We serve around 35,000 unique customers, and this includes both charging and also vehicle to grid. For vehicle to grid, we have a few sites around the world and 6 years plus of experience.
Alex, sorry to interrupt. Your screen share is not working. Could you please try that again so we can see the
Yes.
presentation?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you for stopping me here. Apologies about that. Okay. Can you see the screen?
It's still showing a black screen. Okay, that's working. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Again, my apologies for that. So yeah, just was going through the introduction, and it does help to have a graphic to show you guys our background here. As I mentioned, we have been in operation for 14 plus years since 2009, and over 35,000 customers today, and controlling a little over 160,000 chargers and counting globally. We are also supporting both charge as well as discharge, and so we have the capability to support a variety of different charging scenarios and use cases today. Here in North America, this snapshot shows you the deployments that we have. As you can see, experience spans across a variety of different fleets. Our specialty, of course, is on the commercial side. That includes airports, transit agencies, national parks, and of course, schools. And we've partnered with many, many customers to help them effectively deploy their electric fleets in a reliable manner and at a reduced cost of total operations. And we are excited to see and keep finding and exploring new ways of extending this work and bringing some of these new services. And we'll talk about some of those use cases later on in this discussion. The core of our operation is with Charge Pilot. What I'm showing here is just a snapshot of our architecture. I know this might seem a little complex, but what you're looking at essentially is just our Charge Pilot is our intelligent charge and energy management platform, and the heart of this is in a local controller which is installed at the customer site. This controller enables reliable charging even when there's a disruption to cellular communication or Wi-Fi. This local controller manages site-specific characteristics, so it is unique to every site. It can be as simple as time of use optimization, where we are trying to avoid charging during peak windows, or it can even be designed to effectively manage charging during times when we are trying to avoid expensive charging on time and limited load control. So what I mean by this is if you have sites that may have constraints with capacity, some sites essentially are capped. You will see one of the sites we discussed today, there was a desire to expand the capacity and support DC fast charging. And so for that reason, there are sites where we have to physically go in there and manage loads effectively, while still enabling the customer to be able to effectively meet their operational needs. Each site is deployed according to a unique set of needs, as I mentioned. And one of the ways that we do this is using open standards. And the advantage for that, open standards, is that it allows us to scale, allows us to be able to integrate with a variety of different chargers and enhance the flexibility. It's not just a proprietary interface. So if a school has chargers that already exist, we have the ability to go in and also integrate with the existing infrastructure and also be able to expand based on the needs of each individual customer. We build with a focus of open standards because it allows us to also integrate with a variety of different interfaces like solar and energy storage, and really just be able to enhance the capabilities of all the commercial sites that we're operating in. And some schools have different needs, and so we want to be able to meet them where they are. And so we will talk a little bit about that. There are some use cases where we've been able to successfully deploy in a variety of different scenarios. For today's discussion, I wanted to, or I thought it would be a good showcase to demonstrate the work that we recently did at Fremont Unified, which is a project that we are very, very proud of. The project is titled the Replicable Vehicle to X Deployment at Fremont, but it's really there's two schools that we're going to be deploying Vehicle to X applications on, and that's Fremont and Pittsburgh. The goal of this project, ideally, was going to be to develop a scalable bidirectional electrification project that showcases advanced charging technology using open standards, as I mentioned. More importantly, we are developing a blueprint that will enable other schools to replicate this approach nationwide. Bidirectional charging, for those that are not familiar, Pooja had done a really good job of giving some background on this, but it simply means that instead of just charging the buses, we are feeding power back to the grid, that's vehicle to grid, or in some cases, we can even deploy that energy back to the building and support resilience in terms of power safety shutoffs and events where there are emergencies. We're exploring ways to extend the deployment of these schools, use these school buses to help the local communities stabilize the grid during periods of high demand. In this case, for Fremont, supporting this emergency load reduction program from the utility, and also along the way, hopefully provide some revenue that reduces the total cost of operation of these electric school bus fleets. However, this does carry some challenges, it does carry some complexity, and that's where we come in. We were able to partner with several excellent partners and help successfully deploy bidirectional charging at the school. We are working with World Resources Institute, Polara, the Center for Transportation and the Environment, and of course, PG&E in this site. The foundation for successful implementation really lies in partnerships, and there's a lot of people involved with this work. The first part of this, of course, is detailed planning. There are specific candidates that fit the profile for V2D, V2X deployment. And Ernie, who will speak later today, was really instrumental and engaged throughout this process and helping just step with us as we work through this. Quite frankly, there was a lot of learning that we also went through. And it was really good to have somebody that had that high degree of patience, but also had a lot of expertise and was able to engage throughout this process. So there are use cases where that process can be quite challenging for some. And we found that it was really, really good to be able to have his expertise and also his input on this work. The first part of this was developing a comprehensive plan, not just the V2G sites, the V2G chargers, but the entire electric fleet. What are their current needs? What are their future needs? And are they going to be looking to expand on this? Because as we went through this process, it became clear it wasn't just about bringing bidirectional energy, it's also expanding the site characteristics and bringing additional capacity, bringing additional capabilities, and ultimately helping them meet their long-term needs. This is a very expensive project. We don't want to be going through and digging new trenching every other year. And so for us, I think it was really important to take the time to go out there and build a foundation for that. Ultimately, we hope that this will result in the school saving substantial money in the operational costs and meet their mission to deliver clean, reliable transportation to the student body at the Fremont Unified School District. We wanted to also discuss the utility. It was really important for us to engage with them early. As I mentioned, and you'll see in the next slide, there are multiple components to this, besides just the bidirectional interconnection request, which is the permission to discharge power back into the grid. We were converting this site into 480 volt three-phase and then bringing in an additional service input into this. And so for that reason, working with the utility PG&E early and often was really important because there are multiple parallel processes that we were working through. I wanted to also spend some time and talk about the partners. I mentioned some of those earlier, but one of the things we're really proud of about this project is that it emphasizes local skilled workforce. When we were working through this, there are requirements to work with local communities or local workforce that is trained and certified to EVITP standards and a couple of other mandates that come from some of the bills that were mentioned earlier today. And so we worked with them and the EPCs to develop training modules, and they were able to reliably demonstrate this on this project, which I think is a really important distinction to this, because as you go through and you deploy resources for projects like this ones, you want to think about the implications that it has to the community workforce. And so that was really cool for us to be able to work with people like Vega and others that have an engagement and a vested interest in this. Ultimately, the combination of this is a project that was successful. We were able to go from shovel to production basically in under 4 or 5 months, which was just quite amazing when you consider all of the complexities that go in place. So just to wrap up here, so wanted to share some more details of the project. There are two phases. The phase one of this project is what we've installed, which is 3 chargers, 60 kilowatt bidirectional TELUS chargers. We ran through a capacity expansion, added an additional 351 kVA service, which was now capable of operating under 480 volts and three-phase. And then we have fully interconnected the site, meaning that we have permission to operate and discharge back into the grid. We will also be adding additional monitoring capabilities to the site. So it's not just the bidirectional site. We are adding CMS to the existing chargers, which will enable this school to be able to meet its comprehensive charging needs. And really, that's how we look at this, is that it's not just one part of the site, it's the entire site holistically, building in that capability and helping the site streamline the operations and make things as smooth as possible. And then finally, we also have been able to integrate with a variety of different OEMs. I mentioned that our emphasis on open standards is to be able to scale and to help simplify the process. And so for us, being able to develop end-to-end verification with a variety of different OEMs and make sure that they work interoperably and that it is charging the vehicle and it is not disrupting the operation of the vehicle, the mission is really, really important. And that was a part of the work that we've been able to achieve. And then for phase two, what we hope to be able to accomplish is expand this capacity even further to support an additional 360 kilowatt chargers that will also be bidirectional. This project.
Alex, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're actually running out of time. So if you could just wrap up and we will move on to Ernie. Thanks so much.
This project has a lot of additional value that we hope to be able to accomplish and extract. And one of the ways we're going to do that is to be able to create a blueprint. But just to wrap up, the last thing here, the comment that I have here illustrates one of the things we really hold dear. It's just how we're able to use these buses to contribute towards cleaner air for our community. And this is something that Arnie shares, and we hope that we'll be able to accomplish some of some of his vision as well. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Alex. That was a really, really helpful overview. So we will be now moving to Ernie Epley from Fremont Unified. Go ahead, Ernie. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pooja. My name is Ernie Epley. I serve as the Director of Transportation for Fremont Unified School District. I've been in the industry for about 21 years. Started out as a school bus driver and somehow found myself behind the desk of as director. Apologies, but I don't have a presentation today. My goal for this particular webinar is to have more of a face-to-face, transparent discussion with my colleagues and give unedited feedback. Since, as Alex mentioned, we're still in the still quite literally in the middle of the project. We just finished phase one, which was for the first 3 chargers, and then we're in the middle. We're about to implement phase 2. Also, today I don't want to tell you exactly what you should or shouldn't do to take on a project like this, due to the complexity of the districts. A district like ours, we have 32,000 kids every single day. We're the 25th largest district in the area. So for me to try and get into the weeds and tell you exactly how I did this, or not how I did this, but how this was done from my desk, it's going to be very different from someone who has, their ADA is 10,000 kids and they have 17 school sites and only, 10 or 12 buses, which is a vast majority of districts here in California. Instead, I just want to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and share, at least at a high level. We don't have the time to get into super details today, but what worked for us at Fremont, and more importantly, what didn't. For us, this whole project, B2G project, was part of a grant from the CEC. As Carolina mentioned earlier, the number one thing gatekeeping most districts from electric buses from B2G projects like this is the super high cost that's associated with it. What a lot of people may not always realize, that something like this, when it hits the general fund, we're quite literally taking money out of the classroom, and that's not certainly not my goal as a director of transportation, but no one's goal in education is to take money away from the classroom. So that's why grants are so important, either from state, federal governments. But when I was first approached with this project, as Carolina touched on earlier, a lot of I'm like I said earlier, I came up from the school bus background. I am a school bus driver with a fancy name tag, and I get to wear a button-down shirt. So I'm not much beyond that. However, so when this project came to me, my first reaction was, I'm not leading a construction project. I have no business doing this, right? I know how to get kids to school, and but what's really important is as the project began to develop and as we worked with and we take on partners such as the Mobility House and WRI, World Resources Institute, and on a local level, someone like Vega Electric, who was quite literally the boots on the ground for this project, it became very apparent that my piece in this was just keeping the Board of Education informed. So taking advantage of webinars such as this to educate myself on what exactly we're doing here, so I could then effectively communicate that to the Board of Education, and not only that, but as well as to the community, parents, school sites, school admin, all that kind of thing. And what I really want to talk to and speak to as far as with my colleagues is, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I don't want to say like, oh yeah, this is super simple. We're, on the other side of this, and look at us what we did. No, I really want to be honest and forthcoming in saying, like, it is a big effort. You are going to have to dedicate some time. But don't be afraid of it. It's incredibly rewarding. I'm going to speak to this a little later on towards the end of the presentation, but it's something that's going to have a lasting effect. I don't want to get up here and I think we all, by nature of this webinar, both as presenters and as the audience, I believe we all share a collective goal of sustainability. Not only that, but the sustainability and grid support that we can give. If this is something that can be done statewide, and it is something that can be done statewide, we want to show that. Fremont wants to be one of the examples, saying, look, this is like what Alex was saying earlier. This is our blueprint, and this is what we did. Again, going back to my original point that I just want to open up the curtain to the backstage and let you see what's going on. So 3 key lessons I just want to talk about very briefly at a high level again is early communication is critical. Casting a wide net, reaching out to anyone who might have interest, whether this is, again, the admin at school sites, certainly your Board of Education, getting on the board agenda as a FYI topic, right? Just saying, hey, as an informational item, this is what I'm going to present on this evening at the board meetings. I know that's not every director's forte, but it helps get that message out there and get the communication going, at least on the school district side and everything that we have our day-to-day. And certainly then opening up that line of communication with the utility partners, with the partners that are going to help you take on a project such as this. I know Carolina may have touched on it briefly, but there's something said about districts doing this on their own. That's tough. I know I certainly couldn't have. So these early communication and getting these partnerships is super critical and super crucial to getting this done. And then having the courage to step up and take that on is something that you have to lead in a very unafraid way, meaning that if you're going to take this on, you have to be aware of the challenges that are coming. And again, I can only speak to a personal level. It was something that was very important and something that I wanted to learn. Always thirsting after knowledge and wanting to step up not only to the plate for future generations is something that is very important. Thirdly, I want to talk about team buy-in, and not just the team that I lead here at the district, although that is very important, because a lot of the when you get into the minutia of the day-to-day of what it would take to move a project like this forward, you are going to have a very supportive team around you. But also, again, reaching out to your community, your Board of Education, your superiors, the superintendents, and what have you. Once you get that buy-in, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier moving these initiatives forward. I talked a little bit about the collaboration. Again, I can't I can't hit that hard enough and stress how important that is, to not only the project itself, but also your workflow every single day. When Alex and I first started this project, I wasn't 100% sure where things were going. Again, I had never led a project of this scale or scope before. However, as we started to work more and do our weekly or biweekly check-ins, there was a lot of trust and established there, and a realization that our goals are aligned and we share a lot of the same initiatives. So again, building those partnerships, trust in the shared goals is going to be something that's massive. It's more than just about getting tasks done. It's about belief in the project's vision and the impact it's going to have. So, couple takeaways. Don't let self-doubt stop you from pursuing these ambitious projects. Communicate early, communicate often, and with everyone who might have, even those who you may not have thought would have influence or interest in something like this. It's pretty amazing to see what happens as you progress through this project. What have the folks who have come forward, and I wouldn't have thought to include them in this loop, right? On a project like this, but then somehow like they become part of it and become not only part of it, but crucial pieces of it. And then building a team willing to step up and take on these calculated tasks. A little bit of reflection on the community benefits. I just want to emphasize that this work isn't just about buses. It's about leading our schools, our students, and our communities toward a cleaner, more resilient future. Anytime I'm given a platform to speak to my colleagues, I want to just really hammer that point home, that this is something that we as leaders in these positions need to take seriously, and remembering that the long-term impact of these projects, they have a generational impact potential. And so I just want to encourage everybody to, especially my colleagues in here, to really step up to the plate and to be the leaders that we are in this transportation space. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Pooja. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ernie. Really appreciate your transparency and just sharing some of your lessons learned. We're going to be moving on to Joe Sullivan next, but just wanted to mention again our call to action for today, which is to visit the link in the chat to urge Governor Newsom to sign AB 740 to accelerate virtual power plants in California into law. So next, Joe, please come on camera.
All right. Am I on camera? Can you hear me okay?
We can see your slides, but you're not on camera.
Okay.
Oh, we can see you
How
now.
about-
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today and engaging in this important discussion. My name's Joe Sullivan. I work for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 11, and the National Electrical Contractors Association of Greater Los Angeles. And this morning, I'm going to speak about the essential role of having a skilled and trained workforce to build out the reliable vehicle-to-grid infrastructure. I want to note up front that I'm neither an electrician nor an engineer, but a layperson. I do speak with our contractors and training staff pretty regularly, so I will do my best to inform you. Oh, I am having trouble changing screens. Oh, okay. All right, there we go. All right. So vehicle to grid, as it's been discussed, but vehicle to grid systems are much more complex than standard EV charging stations. You are pushing power back onto the grid rather than just pulling power from the grid. This means that charging stations act as power plants more so than just outlets. They require advanced inverters, controls, and communications. These are necessary if the quality installation of this is necessary to ensure grid reliability. And when school buses, VDG school buses are at scale, these will be grid assets that are important to the stability and reliability of our grid. And as Ernie and Alex just mentioned, that interconnection requires coordination with multiple parties. I mean, they mentioned WRI, Vega, Polar. We're talking utilities and different people within the utilities, aggregators, software providers. And from the standpoint of construction also involves different meters and protection designs than standard chargers. So when chargers are tied together on a shared electrical infrastructure, wiring or protection faults can ripple through the entire system. Wiring, commission, protection, when not installed correctly, can energize circuits that create serious safety hazards. This can be arc flash, shock, or equipment damage. And when vehicle-to-grid systems fail, they're not going to just inconvenience, a bus driver or, a specific day. We're talking about undermining grid reliability and community trust in these systems. So interconnection rules, safety codes, and technical standards require more than just standard electrical knowledge. Installation teams, they must understand regulatory requirements like California Rule 21, UL 1741 SB. Electricians must also understand bidirectional power flow, communication standards, and complex commissioning. Proper physical installation means that software and communication systems are working as they should. And then commissioning requires validating advanced inverter functions and secure utility communications. The good news is with this is EVITP, the latest edition of it or version of it, EVITP 5.0, the curriculum now includes a module on bidirectional charging, which covers, inverter functioning, commissioning requirements, working with utilities and municipalities, and safety. As discussed, a vehicle-to-grid, it's not a single stakeholder. It's a collaborative effort. It requires regular communication. It requires communicating very early. We are working with several school districts and talking with the utilities for them, and there is significant planning that's required up front. Utilities, as we know, they set the interconnection and technical requirements. They bring the power to the site, and they set the rules. Aggregators and software providers, like Mobility House, provide fleet management where fleets can function as virtual power plants. And these platforms enable near instant grid communication that's necessary to optimize revenues and to optimize charging and discharging. All of this, though, depends on contractors and skilled and trained electricians that can build safe, reliable infrastructure that will support these different functions and these different equipment that's not required in standard chargers. So in conclusion, a skilled and trained workforce is necessary for safe, resilient, reliable vehicle to grid. If we expect our school buses to power our communities, then they need to function the same as a virtual power plant or the same as a power plant. And power plants rely on a skilled and trained electricians at the foundation. That's all I have. And this is my contact, and I will send it back to Pooja.
Thanks so much, Joe. Now we will have all the rest of our panelists come on camera, please, so we can move to our Q&A section. Okay, so I will get started with our first question. I think we've been getting a lot of questions in the Q&A about replicability and how we can share lessons learned and some of these barriers in actually getting these projects up with other school districts so we can actually advance bidirectional electric school buses across the state and across the country. So I would love to ask first Ernie and Alex to kind of touch on what are some of the ways that you're sharing some of these lessons learned with other communities.
Sure. Here locally, we've been reaching out to our media contacts and partners. We have a section on our website that details news around the district, and a lot of times local media will pick up on those press releases and share that out. But at a larger scale is, webinars such as this. I've said yes to about 3 or 4 webinars in the last couple of days. Just like I said at the beginning, to to really just share that, hey, this is possible to do. It is hard work, but it can be done. And then also at a lot of our organizations that I'm part of, one of them being named, the acronym is called CASTO, it's California Association for School Bus Officials. So every networking opportunity that I have professionally as it relates to school buses, just word of mouth is I found the best way to share out something like this or a project like this.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of Ernie, very similar. Participating in webinars like this one has been very meaningful for us, being able to get the word out. We found that there's a lot of interest when people start to find out more details about this project. They have questions. We've made ourselves available to be able to assist in any way that we can. Some of the cool events include also participating in school-based climate media sessions and things of that nature, where we also educate the people that are riding on these clean school buses. Just to address maybe one of the questions that did come up is also the ultimate goal of this is to publish material, and where is it going to be published? We are funded by the California Energy Commission or the CEC, and so the conclusion of this project, we are going to be making all the material that the blueprint that we create as a result of all our work is going to be publicly available to schools, or anybody that has an interest in this will be able to access that so that they can learn from us as well.
Thank you both. I also want to give Joe and Carolina a chance to respond if there's other kind of ways that you've been able to spread the word. Carolina, you work on a federal level. If there's ways that your coalition moves together, or Joe working with the union, how you can actually get more in touch with some of these districts that are going through these projects.
Yeah, we work with a couple districts. I've had conversations with them around their transition. Not always vehicle to grid, although we have had a couple conversations, but also just as they plan for the electrification of their fleets. And I think as mentioned, Ernie stated it very well, that they're trying to get kids to and from school, and they don't always have budget for this. And they need to bring in the right partners. And sometimes they try to do it in-house, and they've missed out on grants, and there's been other challenges. A while back, it might have been pre-COVID, we hosted, along with the Department of Energy, a vehicle to grid summit. It was an MOU signing at our training center. And we also participate with the Los Angeles County Electric Truck and Bus Coalition, which is going to be holding a V2G event in Los Angeles soon.
Yeah, all of that is amazing. And I think that's what we encourage is school districts to do events where they can showcase the buses, to put them in even community events, fairs, parades, any expos for vehicles. I think the more that the community can really witness and experience the buses firsthand is really important. We also really recommend that school districts try to keep state and federal lawmakers apprised of any successes and share those stories with them, or challenges, because they are in a position to act. And so we did a lot of work through the many rounds of the Clean School Bus Program to try to keep members of Congress aware of how the program was doing, what were successes, what were challenges, so that they could step in and help. And I think that's true at the state level as well. I think it's really important to make sure decision makers are understanding where things are at, where things can be improved, but also getting to hear experiences of things that are working and those success stories that they can take with them and keep them motivated. So lots of different ideas.
Thanks, everyone. Another question, we're a policy organization here at the Climate Center. So one question I want to ask is, how should California change its policy, or what new policies could California adopt to make the advancement of electric school buses faster in the state? And anyone can jump in on this question.
In terms of vehicle to grid, I think there needs to be the proper incentives in order for school districts to want to do this. We spoke with a school district recently, and they said, why should we? This is going to require switch equipment. This is going to be expensive. It's going to require more risk. The money we're going to get from our utility and from the state isn't very much. We're going to have to layer on additional software. from vehicle to grid, I think the incentives need to place. Now, I do think we have, the regulatory agencies for the transition to electrification, as well as the financial, the grants and the public funding needs to be in place as well. Education around the total cost of ownership, I think, is important, but there still is the original capital outlay, which Ernie touched on, which, they can't really take that from the general fund. So even if the total cost of ownership is cheaper, there still has to be that upfront capital.
Definitely agree on continuing incentives. California really has been a leader in this. And so I think it's really important for the state to continue, especially as we may see a different landscape at the federal level. We know that there are different ways to really advance electrification at the state level, and funding is very important, but so is financing. How can you bring in green banks and other financial institutions so that you're stretching those dollars further? Workforce development and training. CEC does have, I think, one of the few state-sponsored workforce development programs in the country, and it's really important to scale that and show that to other folks how that can work so that you're training your drivers and mechanics for this future ahead of time. Battery recycling, those are also ways that you can really make some improvements, thinking about the second life of a battery, thinking about the end life of a battery. These are ways that you can ensure that the entire project is sustainable from beginning to end. So we have a lot of this in our state policy playbook where we have many ideas of how you can tackle this beyond just the key, creating a funding program. There's a lot that states can do. I would say that right now with V2G, education, just helping school districts understand this and then publishing data. Whatever data is available on how the projects have gone, what revenue streams have been available, successes, what has it actually done? How many lights has it kept on? How many houses has it helped powered? Or, what kind of community resilience benefits are you seeing? It's really important for that to be well known so that other school districts, other stakeholders really understand the benefit of V2G firsthand. So I think those are some things that can be improved.
Do others want to jump in on the policy question? Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
I can share just one quick comment on this. Is just between Carolina and Joe, both really good inputs. On the utility side, I think that there are some opportunities. A lot of cost is borne today with infrastructure, expansion capacity, and things of that nature. There's quite a bit of cost involved in some instances. And some of that has been addressed. For example, in most sites in California IOU territories, you can go through and build out infrastructure, and it will be covered by the utility for the most part using Rule 29, which allows you to be able to have anything all the way up to the meter built out by the utility. There's a process involved with that, and the general processes, you'll be able to leverage that, but there are certain caveats to that, right? And so for us, I think it's how can we make the process a little bit easier so that customers can navigate this and streamline their processes a little bit better. We hope that as part of the work that we're doing with Fremont, that will give good feedback to PG&E and others, but also how can they unify some of those processes for bringing additional capacity, whether it's building, databases where they can know exactly what they need to access that process, and then any additional incremental funding opportunity. That some of that is tied to acquisition of buses. And if you do new buses and new infrastructure, there are programs that the utilities also have been able to offer to customers. And as a result, I think that needs to be expanded. And it needs to be unified at the state level and also hopefully at the national level so that people can have a very streamlined way to electrify their fleets.
Thanks so much, everyone. Yeah, Ernie, did you want to step in, or we can ask the next question?
No, that's fine. Go ahead. We're good.
Okay, yeah, I actually was going to direct the next question to you. So could you talk a little bit about who actually initiated this project, the electric school bus project at Fremont Unified? You said kind of your approach with this idea, but can you tell us a little bit about before that even happened?
Sure. I stepped into this leadership role at Fremont Unified about 3 years ago. they had already had 10 electric school buses already on the road. 4 additional were we were in the middle of that with a generous grant from our local air quality management district, and have since put those 4 on the road. So, but prior to that, I had been in this grant writing game for electric buses since 2019. So sorry, long way to answer a simple question was like I kind of stepped into it, but what I've since learned is that back in 2020, right before the pandemic, that there was a student-led initiative, at least here at Fremont, that wanted to put together what's called a climate action team. It's comprised of many different departments throughout the CNS, which is Child Nutrition Systems, Transportation, Operations and Grounds, which is our folks that take care of the grounds and everything. So we've sort of come together to create a task force to really complete the work that we do every single day in a more sustainable manner, which whether that's recycling the birch, or excuse me, the clippings and from the grounds crews to getting rid of single-use plastic items on our daily lunches, and then my piece, the school buses. So again, without getting into too much more detail, it really was something that was student-led here at Fremont Unified, and that's something that kind of gets a little bit of a misnomer that people think that the sustainability effort is something that's being led at a state level and at the state governor level or what have you. But and that there is some truth to that. However, that isn't the complete truth of or the complete story to tell, that students really do want this, and this is something that they enjoy being part of. So I hope I answered the question. Sorry, I talked too much.
No, that's super helpful. And I guess, is there anyone else who can speak to kind of how these projects come about, if anyone's involved in the initial stages of applying for grants?
It really, really varies. Ernie is totally right that in some cases, students really take leadership, in some cases, parents. And this is the work that a lot of our coalition members do, is they help organize parents and students about issues that matter to them. And for example, CHISPA was organizing parents around clean air, and this is one of the issues that really rose to the top for them, is the fact that kids are riding diesel school buses. And so they started petitioning their school boards to draft action plans. They petitioned Volkswagen funds to be used for cleaner school buses, targeting governors and asking them to make that a priority. In other cases, you have transportation directors or sustainability directors, if a school district is large enough, who really sees this as a goal or is interested. Sometimes it comes from the finance office. They need funding for school buses and they see this as an opportunity. If you have a grants team, then it makes a lot of sense. So it really does vary. We do see a lot of projects across the country that happen because the student environmental club or the parents really got involved and said, hey, this is something we'd like you to consider and pursue. And they, talked to the transportation director or the sustainability director and made it happen. But there is a lot of groundswell of support for this kind of transition. And so having those parents, the students, teachers also be involved, I think is really incredible.
That's awesome. I think we will be switching gears a little bit and wanted to direct the next question to Joe. So what is IBEW doing nationally, so that all the kind of locals can actually help support and be ready for this new kind of wave of electric school bus B2G projects?
Yeah, so it's a little bit hard for me to speak nationally, but let me start with LA and see if we can kind of extrapolate from that. So in Los Angeles, all of our apprentices go through electric vehicle infrastructure training program. So in California, if you're receiving state funding, it is required that you have an EVITP approved contractor. To be an approved contractor, you have to use EVITP certified electricians. You have to be a certified electrician, but they can take the training as an apprentice. And then once they become a journey level worker, they pass the state exam, then they can take the EVITP exam. So that helps create a dedicated workforce for this. Now, within our apprenticeship program, there are a number of modules that cover, I mentioned, like state, or mentioned regulatory codes, national electrical codes, and so forth. These electrical codes are covered as part of our apprenticeship program. And even if the code isn't covered directly, the theory behind that code is covered. And that is covered in the standardized program across the nation. So the concepts necessary to install bidirectional vehicles are taught as part of our 5-year apprenticeship program.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. Our next question is maybe we'll start with Alex. Someone was asking, how easy is it for a school district to add a bidirectional electric school bus to the fleet once there are already other electric school buses? And then maybe Ernie, you can also jump in with some of your experiences.
Yeah, it's a good question. The fleet characteristics for bidirectional, I guess the bidirectional component is unique to the vehicle in the sense that you do have to have that feature built in. The good news is most new buses that are coming off the line, I think I'd say in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, have some form of this support already built in. The exact profile or the exact way that you would be able to deploy bidirectionality with it could differ. So the chargers might not be fully supported. You may have a specific charger to vehicle pairing and things of that nature. And so it's not super easy. I wouldn't say that it's just as straightforward as just going out there and just buying any bus. What I would say is that there is definitely a conversation to be had to at least figure out what pairing you have. If you have an existing charger OEM, they may be compatible with a certain OEM, or they may be compatible with a certain standard. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation, open standards, that is covered through OCPP, as I mentioned, but there's also an ISO 15118 -20 implementation that has come out recently that essentially tries to create standardization for bidirectionality to establish the communication between the charger and the vehicle. And so if you're buying any new buses and you're buying any new chargers, it would be good practice just to ask those questions and figure out what's the best way to be able to buy something that future-proofs you in that way. One of the components in our slide was also a charger selection guide, which is trying to address some of these questions. So as you go through, besides even the V2G piece, what are some of the characteristics you need to be thinking about in terms of power and all those things? But for Fremont, and I'm sure Arnie is going to jump into this, we run into a very similar scenario where we are rolling into a fleet expansion. And as you go through, most schools don't just buy one stock of buses and park them. There's a continuous effort to acquire buses. And so there's been a very deliberate effort to ensure not just the current fleet allocation, but also future fleets. That mixed selection of vehicles would be able to work compatibly with the chargers that we're selecting. And that narrows down the number of opportunities, but it also allows the school to be able to have a much more robust capability as they expand their fleet.
No, the only thing I'll add to that is something I've kind of been hammering all day is establishing that trust in the partners like Mobility House, who can speak much more technically than I could on something like this. So when I first saw this question, I was like, oh, that's easy. And the reason my first reaction was that was easy because I'm not seeing the work that Alex and his team always do behind the scenes, and credit to them for the hard work that they do and making it look easy. But again, it kind of goes back to that building that trust with partners that makes stuff happen.
Thanks so much. And Ernie, just coming back to you for this question on revenues and how the school district is actually financially benefiting from installing these bidirectional electric school buses. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. I just want to be completely clear. I'm not going to go out and buy a a yacht with anything or anything like that. It's not something like that. However, it is the return on investment that we're seeing is palpable as far as things that come to mind really quickly are things like low credit fuel standard LCFS credits that help offset the cost of the utility. The V2G, we're still very early in the game on this. Like I said, we've had the 3 V2G chargers in place for weeks at this point, maybe a month. And we've done a few of the what's called emergency load reduction. And I can let Alex speak to more of the technicalities behind that. However, that there is, as far as costs that's accrued, beyond the initial capital expenditure, there's not a whole lot of exponential costs in maintenance, because a lot of times we've connected these chargers in a way that that kind of helps us. Again, I don't want to get into the technical, but there's software management, load management software that allows us to get out ahead of a lot of issues that might happen with preventative maintenance and things of that nature. So it's less than you would think. It's at least from a school district perspective, and a lot of these savings that we're seeing are offsetting the cost of that. So if you do an apples comparison of what it costs to keep a diesel bus on the road and the maintenance that it requires there, the technical, I mean, I'm paying mechanics upwards of $50 an hour in our shop to keep those updated and they're keep those on the road. Same thing, that cost is going to be same thing with the electric school buses. However, due to the and again, I don't want to just dive too deep into the weeds on this, but there's definitely a reduced maintenance effort on a school bus side that we're seeing once the school buses are up and running.
Yeah, just to hop in this as well, and the bus maintenance definitely, Ernie, I think you have a lot more transparency on the operational elements there. But in terms of total cost operation and the reduction that we anticipate, we've done a lot of case studies where we've determined, just even with normal charge management, substantial cost savings in fleet operation, and this comes through being able to optimize the charging windows where we are utilizing lower cost energy to charge fleets. And then there's also just the reliability element where you're able to see and have validation that your bus is actually working, it's charging properly, and it's ready to go. Even though these are V2G sites, we want to emphasize that our goal is to ensure that those vehicles meet their mission needs, right? And they're able to dispatch on time and deliver students to where they need to be. That's one of the reasons why we have such a heavy transit application as well, because the mission criticality of those buses is super high. And so from this experience with Fremont, of course, foundation of this is it is an electric fleet, and it is dispatching on a regular cadence to take students to and from school. That's the number one delivery that we want to ensure. Now, build upon that, these ancillary services that we're trying to extract, whether it's charge management, being able to offset some of those high costs, and then, of course, vehicle to grid. There is a benefit to vehicle to grid. There's a revenue component to it. As Ernie mentioned, you're not going to get rich off of this. The idea is that you're getting paid a rate for the electricity that you discharge into the grid at a higher rate than what you would have pulling it in. And so that offset on the cost of electricity, I think, is enough to be able to warrant exploring the services. There is a component that is also kind of just the big elephant in the room, which is the infrastructure cost. Now, this is a grant-based project, meaning that it's funded in part by the California Energy Commission, but there's also a really big emphasis in managing costs, right? So we went out there and assessed all the charger OEMs that exist and do V2G. We looked at their capabilities. We looked at what they bring to the table. We looked at what the reliability plans look like. And because the idea here is that it's a long-term goal for the project to be successful, to operate consistently for the duration on the lifetime of the bus, right? So from our perspective, monitoring these vehicles for the term that's defined in the grant, but also for the school's operation in mind is important. And also ensuring that even beyond the V2G piece, that these chargers stay up. We have an uptime component. We are required to maintain upwards of 97% uptime, which is ensuring that the chargers are up and running for the most part. And so that's ultimately going to reduce the amount of labor involved, only having to dispatch buses and move buses around, the drivers around. All that reflects in the bottom line at the end of the year. And so even if this is a V2G project, I do want to emphasize there's all these additional elements that kind of fall into this bucket, and V2G is one of the components, but also all these additional value propositions from charge management, being able to monitor the site, and then control the costs. We hope we'll be able to help the school sites.
Thanks so much. I think we'll move to our next question. again, back to you, Joe. We've had some questions in the chat about kind of who is providing these skilled workers, how many workers are currently certified through IBEW, and what are some of the economic and career benefits of using a skilled and trained workforce in electric school bus projects?
Okay. Well, some of the benefits of using, the economic benefits of a skilled and trained workforce are they go through a 5-year apprenticeship at no cost. We spend about $35,000 per student. They receive, they don't pay for books or tools. They includes job placement. So they earn money while they learn. They're on the job. They work under the supervision of a journey level worker. And when they go out as a journeyman, they have the ability to work anywhere in the country. And there are career advancement opportunities. They can work as a journey level worker, a foreman, a general foreman, a superintendent. They can become an estimator, and so forth. In terms of workforce, so there's maybe two different ones to talk about the numbers. In California for EVITP, I know there were this is going all the way back to 2020. There were 1,600, but I know the numbers have grown exponentially since then. There's more than enough EVITP certified workers. EVITP, by the way, is not a union program. It's an open program. You just need to be a state certified electrician. That's the only requirement. But there's more than enough state certified EVITP electricians to install all the necessary charging stations required by 2030. There are about 83,000 IBEW members across the state, and I want to say we have approximately like 40 some training centers. And we have the capacity to scale up. In Los Angeles, we have the largest training center in the nation. We've had as high as 2,200 apprentices. I think right now we're at about 1,450. But we have the infrastructure, the labs, the teaching staff to scale that pretty quickly or to take it back down. And that's been the model for quite a while. So I hope that answered it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And Carolina, I wanted to ask you, I guess part of kind of your mission is to bring a strong workforce into these projects. So I'm curious if you have any learnings from other states or projects that might be helpful to bring to California on kind of integrating a skilled workforce.
Yeah, a lot of the work that we've done on our side has been on the manufacturing piece. And so we're thinking about the workers who are building the electric school buses, and in many cases they were building diesel buses before. And so how do you ensure a just transition? How do you make sure that they have well-paying jobs that can sustain their families with good benefits? And so many partners of our coalition have been working on that for many years. It's great to be able to say that at this moment in time, the legacy manufacturers of school buses are all unionized. And so we feel strongly that they're providing good jobs to their workers. And increasingly, we see that among the smaller manufacturers as well. And so when you buy one of these buses, you know that they're built here in America and that the workers have really great jobs. And so that's been really important to us that as we are building up the electric school bus industry, providing federal funding, federal dollars for these buses, that we make sure that those workers also have great jobs. And then we have also worked with a lot of partners to make sure that we're getting information out there about workforce development for drivers and mechanics. And so we know that it is really critical for them to be well trained to maintain and drive these buses. It's National Drive Electric Month, and so also would be remiss if I don't mention that there are so many great benefits for drivers to be able to steer an electric school bus, to have that cleaner air, that healthier working environment. We also hear from drivers often that they really, really enjoy that electric school buses are quieter. And so they can hear the kids. The kids aren't shouting, and it's just a much calmer environment. We've also heard that behavioral issues have improved on electric school buses. And so when you're thinking about workers, we're thinking not only about EVITP certified electricians, we're also thinking about those who build the buses, drive the buses, maintain the buses, and what can we do to support them. WRI has some really great resources on that, as do our partners at Jobs to Move America. And so we try to get that information out there as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, this has been a super engaging discussion. Thank you to all of our panelists. On in the spirit of collaboration, which is the theme of our webinar today, I wanted to give everyone a chance, maybe like one short sentence. What is one takeaway or something you want to share with the audience about how collaboration is really crucial in advancing bidirectional electric school buses? So I will maybe ask Joe to go first.
Yeah, well, thank you. I touched on that a bit in my presentation. It's impossible for our contractors and electricians to build these systems without collaboration. They need to be working with the OEMs, mobility house, especially utilities. They need to be working with them very early. That engagement's critical. And it's not it's not so much like a school district calls a general contractor who calls an electrical contractor and you're off and running. It requires quite a bit of planning and engagement. And I think Ernie and Alex covered it very well. And I would echo their sentiments. And
Awesome.
I would also echo Carolina's that the skilled and trained workforce ensures that high road wages and high road careers and middle class wages.
Great. One sentence, please. Maybe Alex next.
Yeah, we're all in this together, guys. I mean, there's a lot of questions that have come up as part of this presentation, and it's clear that there's a lot of interest, but we are very much in a spirit of trying to disseminate information and share experiences. So I really like the enthusiasm that this project brings, and we really hope to be able to showcase this work. We are an open book, so any questions I think that come up as a result of this work, we will be sharing in the blueprint, as I've mentioned, and excited to be able to see what comes next.
Awesome. Carolina?
I really like what Ernie said earlier about aligning your goals. And so we know that this takes huge teams with a variety of stakeholders, people you may not often work with, and sit down, align those goals, and make sure you talk often.
Finally, Ernie, last word.
Reach out. Networking is key, vital.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping it short and succinct. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Just wanted to give one last reminder for our call to action for today, which is please fill out our form to urge Governor Newsom to sign AB 740 into law to advance virtual power plants in California. And that would help, bring more bidirectional electric school buses to support our grid. So thank you again for joining today. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.